A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Second Amendment, Bill of Rights. But where do we draw the line?
Guns. In the past, an iconic American image. In American culture, guns have often represented freedom, strength, and unity, common American values. However, in more recent years, we have found that guns may play a more sinister role in our society. Recent rises in the frequency of mass shootings have caused Americans to ask themselves questions like, is our media causing violence? Are our schools safe? Are our gun laws strict enough? This has led to changes in gun policies in government, and not everyone agrees. As with any controversial topic, there are many sides to the gun debate. Some want the absolute allowance of guns, and some want them to be banned, and we, the public, are left to decide. But what else can we do about gun control? How can we change how Americans view guns to prevent further gun crimes? The answer may lie in education. We sat down with Jennifer Hotler to find out more about early education and its effectiveness.
So what we see with kids, the younger they are, the more impressionable they are, because the brain is what they call plastic. In other words, it's not this kind of set organ that stays the same. As kids grow, their brain changes. And that lasts, our brains remain plastic our entire lives to some extent.
So what does this mean about what we should do? Hawley suggests that it would be easy to teach a younger child a lesson that will stick because of the malleable state of their brain. We went to a security guard to find out what he thought about teaching children about firearms.
I believe that wholeheartedly that if they were taught early and they were taught, what guns are capable of doing, that I think a lot of people would be more in tune to have better knowledge of weapons.
If we are to fix a problem, we must first identify the root of that problem. Recently, especially with a massive increase in the frequency of gun crime on a massive scale, many have asked that all-important question, why is this happening? Many people are blaming governmental policies, but let's take a look at this chart comparing the firearm-related gun crimes to the regulations by state. In some areas, like in the northeastern part of America, we see that stricter regulations may cause a reduction in gun crime. However, as we move west, the correlation between gun crime and gun regulation breaks down, with states like North and South Dakota, who have some of the most infrequent gun crime rates, having the same regulatory policies as states like Tennessee and South Carolina, who have the worst rates of gun-related crimes in the country. There may be a correlation between crime and regulation, but it does not seem to have enough of an effect to actually change the crime rates.
Honestly, the biggest factor they've been able to find is genetic. There's something, it's kind of like the seed of personality that we're born with. It's called temperament. And whether or not a kid turns out to be a violent adult depends on what their temperament is like as a child. So if they're hostile as a child, they're always the kid in the nursery hitting the other kids in the face and taking their toys away. And then we combine with that genetic predisposition violent models. That's what Albert Bandura, the observational learning theory guy, would call them, models. Violent models, people that the kids see committing acts of violence. We combine those two things, you have a chance that kid will grow up to be a violent offender. As much as I hate to say it, they've done studies on, there's a famous study called the Bobo doll experiment, where, Bobo doll's the blow-up doll that you hit and it's weighted at the bottom so it comes back up. They've done experiments on violent video games, and if the kid doesn't have that genetic predisposition, that kind of real hostile, aggressive temperament, chances are that media and those models won't affect the child to the point that the child will actually go out and commit violent acts. We found a couple things, though. First thing is that live models are more influential than virtual models. And the second thing is that it depends on how consistent that modeling is. If that child has a violent parent, for example, that child is much more likely to commit acts of violence than if, they play Halo or something like that, and there aren't any other violent models in their life. And so, in a way, in order to produce a violent offender, the stars kind of have to align, unless you're talking about the cycle of generational poverty, kind of what we see in our inner cities where all of your models are violent, and that's just the way life is. But we're talking about kind of an average kid that has kind of an average upbringing. They really do have to have that genetic component, and then they have to have live models and multiple live models. Well, they don't have to, but they're more likely to be violent if they have those models in their life, and they're more than just one of them.
But what is going on now? What is causing children to act out so violently as they get older? Some suggest that it is the fault of the media, while others disagree. Again, we asked our psychological expert if there was any truth to this argument, and to see just what is going on with children to make them more violent as they grow up.
From a psychological point of view, there are varying viewpoints. One viewpoint is if you give a kid who's already predisposed a violent model, which we see violent models in our media all the time, not to mention news stories where violence is not necessarily promoted, but it's definitely sensationalized. If you give a kid violent models and they have an implement like a gun to go out and commit a crime, they're more likely to do that. Other parts of observational learning, they'll go against that, and they say, well, if the child has responsible models, even if they do have the violent predisposition, if they have responsible models, if they're not on a steady diet of music and video games and movies that all promote violence, and if their live models aren't violent, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with having a gun in the house if you keep it locked up and if you're responsible for it.
What can we put in effect that would help gun crime rates go down in the future?
Certain weapons should not be. I don't see why you would need an automatic weapon or one with 30 round clip, because I was taught to hunt and all we needed was a single shot. So to me, certain weapons I don't really agree with. You don't need something that's automatic or has 30 or 50 rounds in it. It just doesn't make sense to me why you would need something like that.
Another way we can teach children firearm safety is through gun replicas. For all the people that already own firearms, and also for the people who do not own firearms for whatever reason, airsoft guns are a great alternative to learning firearm safety and other gun-based knowledge. These weapons are almost virtually the same as their real steel counterparts. This is also dependent on the quality of airsoft gun you get. Children can learn the basics, as in where is the safety located, how to check if it is loaded or not, also pure ergonomics of the real thing. Around our country, some law enforcement groups use airsoft guns as training tools. The reason for this is that some airsoft guns do a really great job on simulating the real thing. Some airsoft guns, like the one shown, disassemble like the real version, so that way you'll know how to take it apart for maintenance and how to reassemble it. No matter if you are a novice or veteran shooter, these airsoft guns are fantastic solutions. One of the main reasons is the cost of ammo. The cost of the .223 round for AR-15s is roughly 50 cents a pop. That can get costly. However, these weapons shoot plastic BBs. You can get roughly 5,000 rounds for $15. As you can see, this airsoft gun is powered by propane, something very easy to find at any local department store. This gun operates very much like the real steel counterpart. It has blowback, which means the slide cycles back every time you pull the trigger back to emulate cycling a real round. In this case, it would be a plastic BB. Another great reason airsoft guns are a good option for veteran shooters is that you can use the same gear. Some shooters have vests that let them hold their magazines. The airsoft mags will work perfectly with any pouches on your vest, so you can practice reloading and just get more used to your gear that you already use. Novice shooters can also benefit from having any sort of pouch system. If you don't want to invest that much money, you can also get a duty belt, which also you can mount pouches on it for your reloading. So that way you can practice this reloading just in case they ever do pass a ban on 30 round mags. No matter if it's an airsoft gun or a real steel, you should always practice reloading. The reason that novices should practice reloading is so that if they reduce the max to 20, 15, or even 10 rounds, you will still be able to reload efficiently, just like if you were a veteran shooter, and not fumble around and waste precious moments that could be your last.
Through careful study of relating to gun control and violence, we can conclude that one of the solutions to firearm-related violence may be in educating our children to be better equipped to handle difficult decisions and situations involving guns.